to the Courage to Rise show. I'm Katie Cianci, I'm your host, and we have Lisa Hromada, and we're so excited to have you here. And Lisa is the creator of Love is the Seed. She's also the author of Love is the Seed, Teaching from the Spirit World, and the Three Supreme Gifts, a practical approach to self-mastery and transforming your life in the here and now. So we are so excited to have you here, and we have some incredible tips to be sharing with our guests, and we're also going to be talking about your books and what you're offering. You're also a speaker and you do workshops, so we'll talk a little bit about that and what you're creating there. So feel free to, would you mind sharing just a little, something that inspired you to start, your book and what you're offering?
Right. Well, just a little bit of background about myself. I am a wife and a mom first, and I also have been doing personal and professional development for a number of years. And right now my focus for the past, I would say, half year has been really to focus on the messages that came through from very personal experiences that happened within my family decades ago, that in the early 1980s, my father began to have a series of divine experiences, which led him to channeling messages or receiving messages from various souls and wise ones for the benefit of mankind. So to benefit all of us having this human experience so that we can learn, understand our life better, things like that. And last September, so it was 2019, that I got my books published. I had been putting them together, and the first one is Love is the Seed, Teachings from the Spirit World, where I share many of these raw sessions with Spirit that that came through my father and my mother dictated word for word. And I'm really excited. I always knew that I would share these messages with others because they're messages of such love and that we can essentially create a life of our choosing right here and right now in any given moment. So that's sort of the background of what I do and what I do in my workshops, as well as speaking and just being the instrument to share these messages.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. It's also interesting because I created a love seed, and then I found your Love is the Seed, and there's just so many similarities. So it's so clear that God really speaks through us in so many ways, and how we can connect. And so I just feel like we were divinely connected, and to share this message with our listeners or people watching. Right. And so I just feel like it's such an honor and pleasure to have you here to share this, the messages that your father received and then now you're receiving.
Right.
And you shared that there's some like 3 stories in your life that can come up, and so that's part of your book too, where you talk about the 3 stories.
Right. I do talk about the 3 stories in the 3 Supreme Gifts. I explain what that is. Mm-hmm. And when we understand the 3 stories of our life, we can have a better understanding of our life in general, mm-hmm. why things happen, and how we can create a more fulfilling life in companionship with divinity or in companionship with God. Mm-hmm. So there's the story that we write, which translates as to us as personality, seeking out purpose and fulfillment, sort of determining what we want for our life and going after it. And then there's a story that's being written through us, and this is by the grace of God, and it's often not the exact story that we're writing, but it is always for our benefit. And then there's a story that we can co-write with God, and this comes when we consciously surrender to a story being written through us, and when we live from a place of love, thought, and free will, which I explain in detail in the 3 Supreme Gifts. And when I talk to groups and, send messages out there to really share how these 3 stories of our life, when we understand it, it can empower us to really make shifts in our life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially like having the purpose. I really believe like whenever somebody talks about purpose, I notice that they will put their hand on their heart, or when they feel this mm-hmm. like passion, because it comes through the heart. It comes
Mm-hmm.
through, I mean, love. Love is where we feel it, usually in the heart is where we
Right.
feel it. And
Right.
so, yeah. And so love is the seed. And how did you come up with that name? Love is the seed,
Well,
or is
so
this?
in these sessions with spirit,
Mm-hmm.
when they occurred in the early 1980s, they said that part of their purpose for coming through my father was to write 2 books, and they said the first book would be on love,
Mm-hmm.
because love is the foundation of all. Love is at the seed,
Mm-hmm.
and so at the seed of all creation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really how that came about, because it is the very foundation of everything. It's the foundation of all the messages. It's the foundation of everything that happens within this life. It's the foundation of how we were created, how all of creation was created out of this love. And what they called it was love given, this energy of love given, that what you give out is always returned to you. And it's an unconditional love. It's the love of God. It's the love of divinity. So that's really where that comes from. And so I focused, there was many sessions, over 200 documented sessions that my mother hand wrote. And when I went through them, I just compiled as many sessions as I could find, based on love, based on creation, and based on what we ask ourselves most in this life. So I think that we often ask ourselves about death, about do we reincarnate? Do we, why are we here? Is there a karma aspect? Is there a love aspect? Why are we really here? And that's really what I chose when I put the sessions together.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's powerful. So yeah, and I also want to share with, I mean, we can talk about a little bit about this, is about how, we talk about God. I mean, there's all kinds of different terms that people use. Some people use creator, universe, God. And for some people, like you and I, who use the term God, that sometimes it's like this terminology that we can get caught up of, like not saying God, or
Mm-hmm.
can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I think that sometimes it all depends. We come in with our own personalities, our own upbringing, our own beliefs. We formulate things, and so we have an emotional reaction to certain words.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I think people maybe are afraid to use God for one reason or another, the word God. But what's interesting, and what came through in one of the sessions was, it doesn't really matter what word we use. It is our meaning behind the word, our intention behind the word. And God refers to this one creator, this energy of love, this light. So we can term it anything that we want, but at the seed of everything is this love. That's what it really means.
Yeah, and that's actually what can bring us together.
Exactly.
Is this
That's what does bind us together. Including when we come into this life, we are all seeking a greater wisdom of love. That's what we innately seek out, is love. And it translates in different ways in this life, and we come to various realizations through this life to come to that truth, to kind of embody this empowerment of love.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think sometimes when we talk about words, or even sometimes with religion, it can separate us rather than unite us. And love is universal. Love
That's right. That's
is
right.
something that we all experience,
Mm-hmm.
and is incredibly powerful and healing. And it's a gift. I mean, it's absolutely a gift that we share with one another.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, if we can, if we're able to shift and focus into love and experience and focus on that rather than the terminology, because it
Right.
really comes from source, which is love
Right. Right.
in us all. So that's powerful. And then you also share in your books, in one of your books, is about the 3 supreme gifts.
Right.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Right. So what happened is, when I was putting together Love is the Seed,
Mm-hmm.
there was a repetition of message regarding these 3 supreme truths in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And there was such repetition that I had to ask myself why. And one day I came to the realization that these three supreme truths or three supreme gifts impact every area of our life. And they can allow us to see our way through times of challenge, as well as to create a life of our choosing, to get into the flow of our life. So love being the foundation that functions and guides.
Mm-hmm.
Thought being the creator, that we can create, we can imagine, we can visualize, and free will being that expressor, that is what leads us to taking the right actions in our life to get onto a clear path to joy. And so I explained, if we can understand these three supreme gifts and embody it just a little bit more, that we can create an amazing flow in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really incredible.
Mm-hmm. Yes, especially free will, because that comes up quite a bit. I know just in people who really, I mean, there's all kinds of beliefs, right? Some people will say, well, I don't have any will over this. I mean, especially when something traumatic has happened,
Mm-hmm.
or a loss that you didn't expect, or just a loss in like a series of losses or struggles, because it's like, well, I'm, especially if you come from a positive perspective, I'm positive, and, I'm giving, and I
Mm-hmm.
give so much of my heart. Why is this happening? How do I have free will? How can I use it? So I don't have more bad things happen to us. We have a label on what comes, especially adversity. So how does free will come into that? Like how much, I think sometimes people want to control.
Right.
They have
Well,
control.
there's a difference between control, wanting control, and having free will.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to free will, when we understand free will from this divine perspective, we align ourselves. It's not necessarily free will, but we align ourselves with divine will or God's will, which is true free will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we have the free will, of course, as personality to do whatever we want in our life. We can make choices. We can choose our thought. We have free will in thoughts, free will in actions. But it's when we come to a place where we use our free will in a way that's guided by love and also guided by thought in this energy of solutions, that we create tangible results in our life that are that benefit us, that are wholly beneficial, benefit us as well as others. And that's true free will, is divine will. It's love given. It's giving of ourselves. It's being of service. That is true free will when we align it with divine will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And sometimes we don't realize what's happening, especially I can just speak from my own experience. When I've had challenging times or I've had adverse experiences, started as young as I was 18 months old, really young, is that you could go through life saying, why did all these things happen to me? Or you could shift
Mm-hmm.
and say, and maybe that's going to be some part of this is, well, it's divine will, or you might not realize that it's happening for you rather than to you.
Right.
Later on, you say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, now I see why this happened. Now I understand.
Right.
This is part of my purpose, or right? I mean,
Right. Yeah, it's the way we respond to the things that happen, because we will inevitably always be presented with challenge or times of suffering, things like that, because what was reflected within these sessions with spirit, what these souls called this earth experience or this human experience, is a psychodrama. Now, this earth experience is a problem-centered learning school, one of many divine learning schools. So we were presented with the contrast, right? When we experience the lows in our life, the challenges, the times of suffering, what this does is it calls us to go within and really think about our lives, what we want. It allows us to reconnect with God, because we seek more, right? We're seeking something better. And what happens when we do this is we often come to a place where we are even better coming out of this experience, right? More learning. And we also can come to a place where we realize a higher calling or a deeper purpose. And we end up helping more people, or just aligning ourselves with like you said, divine will. We align ourselves with that story that's being written through us. And we can go with the flow of that and get answers from within on those next steps to take. So really, it's hard. It's very difficult in the moment when we are experiencing those times of suffering and confusion. But one thing that I share in the three supreme gifts is this empowerment of thought that we have. And when we think from a place of an energy of solutions, that it can have an incredible effect on our perspective of our life, the actions that we take, and just this general energy that we live within. Mm-hmm. So when something comes up that causes us frustration or challenge, if we just take a moment and we say, you know what, I know there's always a solution, and it'll be presented to me in one form or another. There's always a solution. Mm. When we declare this, we align ourselves with this energy of solutions that exists. It's a divine energy of solutions that came about through my father's experiences on various planes and realms that he experienced, that there's an actual energy zone of empowerments that we can connect to. And when we do, we can gain answers that we need, or someone comes into our life that gives us the answer, or that next teacher comes into our life that enlightens us in some way so that we can continually move forward and get past our times of challenge.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like, it's interesting because sometimes people that you mentioned, like you ask for it. So it's like you're connecting with God, with your source, spirit. And some people, when they have times of challenge or suffering, some people will go away from that. Maybe they did have that connection, but then it's almost like, you did this to me, so
right,
I'm angry,
right.
I'm mad.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they go away. And then if they were able to stay in that space of, okay, so what is the solution? What is
right.
the gift in this? Then what a difference that can make for their journey.
I'll tell you, that's the number one shift that we can
make.
Is it? Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Okay.
It is the number one shift that we can make to turn adversity into opportunity, is the shift that we make from focusing on the problems in our life to focusing on what the solutions are. Now, sometimes we don't know exactly what the solution is going to be immediately, but when we shift our perspective to focusing on that there is a solution and that we're willing to live and be a solution to what's going on, that we can allow ourselves for the solution to be presented to us. And it will always be presented to us in some way. Okay, so because we often get stuck in a problem begets problems energy zone. Yes. Where this is going wrong. Well, you know what? That's going wrong too. And I'm sure that, something else is probably going to go wrong today because I started my day off on, and so we start thinking about all these things that have gone wrong, or if something has recurred in our life and we're like, oh, here it comes again. You know what? This always happens to me, right? We think these always happens to me. But when we shift our thinking to saying, okay, there's always a solution, that we can, in that moment, we can gain a little bit more clarity because we're not focused on the problem after problem, thought problem after problem mentality that we often find ourselves within. Mm-hmm. And it's a natural thing that we find ourselves within, focusing on the problems, because it's a survival thing, right? In this life, where we're meant to see the problems so that we can survive, right? But when we focus on the solutions, then we can open ourselves up to receiving the solution, whether it's in a nightly dream, whether it is someone comes across your path, whether you're driving, you see a sign, and it sparks a knowing within you that resolves something for you. Mm-hmm. And it happens all the time.
Yeah, it does. It happens all the time when you have awareness and you're open to it. So it is like perspective, because you could also recognize all the great things that are happening. And that's why some people say gratitude. Mm-hmm. Starting your day with gratitude, or ending your day with gratitude, or both, or just throughout the day, can help you see that there's other, it's not all problems.
Right. You'll find as you do this that most of your life is about solutions. When you make that shift, you'll notice that most of your life is about solutions. It's not about problems. And it is a shift in perspective, but it's an important shift. It's one of the most empowering shifts that you can make. And you can tell others and share with others, because we do get stuck sometimes in a victim mentality, that this has happened to me. It's always happening to me. People take advantage of me. I'm always giving, and yet it's not being returned to me. But what we find is when we shift our perspective, our whole life shifts. And we can get into that flow, that divine flow of life that exists.
And then it also can affect the people around us.
That's right. When we shift our energy that way, it affects all others around us. That people start to, they could feel it. They start to come around, or they start to want to be around you more, or because there's a light within you that is helping them to, is empowering them really to find that piece of themselves within them, that they can then go out and improve their lives in whatever way that they want to.
That's great. I'm wondering what happens how do you know in your body? I mean, is there some feeling in your body, or there's just like an inner knowing, like you just have this certainty? Because for you have this practice that you've been doing for many, many years. How long would you say? You've grown up with this perspective?
Right. Well, I've grown up with always having spiritual experiences, and gradually learning more in depth what it means to be soul having a human experience, because I sought it out. And so I think that there's a natural knowing within everyone.
Yeah. There's
a natural seeking within everyone. And so we can get in touch with this at any time.
Okay. So it's asking. Is it asking?
It is asking. Part of it is asking. Part of it is taking time to go within yourself. I like to do a heart practice or a heart meditation where you just focus on your heart center. I believe that the soul really resides within the heart. The heart is very intelligent. It's what works, allows all the organs in your body to work, and so when we do a heart practice, when we focus on our heart center, we can ask a question, and we can see what thoughts pop up into our mind, what visions we might have in front of our eye. And if that doesn't happen during that particular heart practice, that's okay too, because what we do is we're making a connection in that moment, and then we can get answers within nightly dreams. We can get answers in our daily life. All it does is opening ourselves up to allowing whatever answers to come through. We come into this life as knower soul, where we come into this life before. We come into this life where we've had lifetime after lifetime of experience. So there's a level of knowing within us all. And what we're doing each day is we're connecting with that knowing without really realizing that this is what we're doing through all the experiences that we have.
Oh, that's so true. And then I also noticed that sometimes we get these signs, at least for me. I mean, everyone has their own signs, but sometimes you get signs of, like, I've noticed numbers. Like I started to get numbers like 333 or 555 or 44, like 111. I mean, it's just kind of strange. Like it would just pop up in the random places to the point where I didn't notice it before until it happened all the time. And it was just right there in my face. And I didn't really understand, like, well, why was this happening? Why do I keep seeing these numbers over and over again? And so we get messages sometimes, even billboards, like a billboard, you might be thinking about something and then all of a sudden you see this billboard or something comes across your way and it's so out of the norm that you, or so frequent that you say, okay, I can't miss it. It's right there in front of me. Is that what happens? Is that kind of some of the things? Right.
When the more we focus on something, the more we bring it to us. Right. So let's say, for example, like I know that when I really wanted to get pregnant, I was ready to have children. It wasn't happening for me for a while. And of course, all I saw were pregnant women everywhere, right?
Right.
So it's our focus. When we're focused on something, we typically notice things more often in our life. So we have to understand, we have to be careful what we focus on in our thoughts and our intentions, because we're always putting this energy out there, no matter what, this thought energy. So what we give out is always returned to us. That's that energy of love given. What we give out is always returned to us, that there's justice in love. That's the justice of love. What we give out is always returned to us. So that's one of the things that was within the book too, that within these sessions, that what matters most in this life is our intention. Our intent is what matters. So whatever we're doing, whatever we choose to do, what's the intention behind it? And that's truly then the energy that we're giving out. So if you're not giving out in a loving, giving way, somehow you're always going to be returned to that, and you're going to think of it as all these problems in your life, and you're going to focus on that, and it's just going to be a cycle. That's why we want to shift out of that cycle, break that cycle, so that we can truly live the life that we came here to live, to really enjoy this life in this human form, that we are souls having a human experience, that we can grow and we can evolve, and we can do this through this energy, this divine energy of love, and really transform our life.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, being able to really like open your heart to possibility with intention. Intention is incredibly powerful.
It is.
I mean, that's how you create your reality. Really, is the intention. And we're just barely tapping into our brain's capacity, our mind's capacity. But it's more than just the mind. It's the mind, body, and spirit.
Right. Everything is connected. Right.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, and love, thought, and free will affects everything. It affects our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, our imaginative body, all these bodies that we have, these empowerments that we have in this life that we can use to our advantage to create this life of our choosing, to get through times of challenge. I'll tell you, I want to make sure that I share one of the most important things that I think came about through my own experiences of actually experiencing what it means to have love, thought, and free will, and the three stories of our life, to be able to co-write our story with God, is one of the most challenging parts of my life, or times in my life, is when in my journey to being a mother. So I either had difficulties getting pregnant or difficulties sustaining a pregnancy. And one of the last pregnancies that I had that didn't work out was devastating, and it really called me to surrender. And I think that's one of the biggest things in this life that we can do, is surrender to God. We can surrender to divinity. And the way that we do this is how we begin to co-write our story with God, is we come to a place where we say, I'm willing to write this story together. I'm willing to surrender. And at that pivotal point of suffering, I told God, I'm willing to be of service in whatever way that you show me, whatever way that you want me. I'll do this, God. I'll do that, God. As long as part of what my purpose is I can be present as a mother, I can be present as a wife, and be fully present in this life and enjoy this life. And I will do what you call me to do. I'll do that. And at one point, it was last year, that at one point, after about a half a year after my second child was born, I came to the realization that it was the time for me to share these messages. And I sat and I put Love as a Seed together. Within months, I put it together, which is a very short time. And within maybe 3 months, I got, it published by a traditional publisher. I got accepted. And right after submitting Love as the Seed to my publisher, I sat and I wrote the 3 Supreme Gifts, because I realized what that meant. And it was so exciting that I wanted to share it with everyone, because that's what I was called to do. And I knew that just because, like I've said, we come into this life with a certain level of knowing. As a child, I knew that I would share these sessions with others, but I just didn't know when. I didn't know how. And then it just came to me, last year, that it was the time to do it, and it just flowed. And that's what that's how I know that I'm continually on purpose. And I continually then go to God. And if I don't know what to do next, I go to God and I relax within myself. And I say, what would you like me to do next? And it's not that I get an answer right away. It's not a conversation like that. But what happens is I ask, and then I go about my daily routine, whatever I need to get done. And ultimately, things will start coming up where I'll be presented with, well, I'll be inspired to do the next thing, and know that that's the next thing that I'm meant to do. And that's really how it works. And that's what I want to share most with people, is that when we come to a place when we willingly are make ourselves available to have that purpose be presented to us, that we can make that shift and be able to kind of co-write our story with God. And everybody's calling is going to be different. We each have our own characteristics and talents and things that we do. We do it in our own unique way, but we're always providing service to others, no matter what. We are all of service to others. That's that energy of love given, right? And so that's how this came about, like kind of knowing my purpose, right? At this particular point, is I allowed it to kind of find me and just know that the timing was right, but be open to it.
I love that, how you allowed it to find you. Allowed it, and you really sit with and have that conversation and allow the messages to come in and are patient.
Right. And they'll come in nightly dreams, or they'll come in, people who come across our path. They can come about when we journal. When we journal, because we're in free flowing creation, right? And things start to, and at a certain point, right, we start by thinking about something to write. And at some point, this energy takes over, and we're just inspired. We're continually inspired, and we're just writing. And that's how that's another way too of getting in touch with our intuition, is getting into that creative flow. And it could be painting, it could be drawing, it could be singing. I mean, singing is amazing in this life. No matter if you have a good voice or not, singing is amazing. It raises your vibration. It raises your endorphins, it makes you feel good. Or dancing. These are all things that can really change our whole energy. It's our intention behind everything that we do.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love you say co-create or co-write your story with God, like co-create your life. That's amazing to be able to know that you don't have to do it alone. Like
you don't have to do it alone.
There's a higher power along with you.
Right. Always. Always. That's the message.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, thank you. I'd love for people to also hear about your free gift, and because you're offering a generous free gift.
I am.
And would you like to share what that is?
Well, it's what I'm giving is, do you have the URL to that in front of you? Okay. Yes. You could share the URL. And what it is I sort of dissect what it really means, this mantra of love that I define in the 3 supreme gifts, really understanding what this gift means, how we can utilize it. And I give a background of why this mantra is so empowering for people. And so that's what that is. And you can give the URL and let people explore that. And I also invite people to email me with any questions or revelations or clarification as they go through it.
That's wonderful. I'll definitely include all of that below in, the email. It's in the email that I'm sending to people.
Okay.
Great. Everyone listening. So you'll find that below. And then also your website and how to contact you. So that's all there. It's a beautiful website.
Good, thank
you. It just feels love. You just go there and you just feel this openness of love, because that's how you are being. You are being love.
That's right. Right. So right. Right in that energy. That intention, because that's really the message that came through for me, and that I always knew growing up, is to freely share all these messages, because I'm just like I said, I'm just the messenger. I'm just the instrument to share what was said in these sessions with Spirit, what the empowerment that God gives us every day. and how we have the empowerment to create a life of our choosing.
Well, thank you. So we'll end on that because that's very powerful. So
Okay, great.
Well, thank you all for joining us, and we'll be having another show tomorrow, or another episode tomorrow. So I'm excited that you're here, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Lisa or I. And then we also have a Facebook page. If you've not joined yet, we will also be doing lives there, and Lisa's going to be joining. We're going to be joining together and having a live there. So enjoy the rest of your day, and perhaps incorporate some of these tips that Lisa shared about being in a space of love and asking for solutions, and being present with God, who you can co-create life with. So thank you, and have the rest of your day, blessed day. Thank you.